blip gonna go away? Hey everybody, and welcome to our live broadcast with the Laurastar Iron Company. Really excited to have Mike Vendetti here from Laurastar. He is the U.S. sales manager for the Laurastar product, and he's gonna spend most of the time with you guys telling you, what makes these irons awesome, these steam machines awesome. We've got obviously some special pricing for you guys, so we'll talk about that a little later on, but I just would like to turn the time over to Mike.
Thank you, Denise. Good morning, everyone. How are you? I'm excited to be here and talk about Laurastar and with with Nuttall's as well. So what I'd like to do is kind of take you through Laurastar, like Denise had mentioned, kind of how it works, why we're different, a little bit of the background of the company so you understand, kind of what, as a company, who we are. What I'm also going to do is, I've got a competitive iron here that I'll show you a couple of differences that you can visually see versus me telling you between the traditional iron, again, and Laurastar. And once again, let you know how different we are. So, and then Denise will talk about promotions and some other goodies that Nuttall's is offering you as their customer as well. So let's get started. Laurastar, we're a Swiss company. We're 40 years old. This year we're 40 years old. And Laurastar only makes two different categories of products. In both cases, they're steam irons. In this particular case, I'm physically behind one of our units. We call it the Smart U. And essentially, it's got the boiler down below, it's got the board, so it's a one complete unit. Okay. It also has a fan built into the board. We've got a couple of versions of this. And to your right or to my left, I've got a small red lift on a cardboard display there. Again, we call it the lift, and we have three versions of that. And that's basically the same type of iron. It performs the same way, but it does not include the iron. It does not include the ironing board. So again, Denise will talk about that later on. So from a category standpoint, we're looking at these two things. But also keep in mind, whether it's the integrated system or the individual version of a lift, the irons all perform and work the same. So again, and that's the difference maker from us and everybody else. So let's get started. So briefly, this is how it works. We recommend tap water. Basically, you need minerals in the water for these things to work properly. Okay, so we will always guarantee the right amount of minerals going into the boiler that will ensure these irons will work. In fact, the average lifespan is 10 plus years. Okay, so they're made to last a long time. So in this particular case, in the system, again, by using tap water, okay, we have a little filter here. So if you've got any excess minerals coming out of your tap water, this filter will pick up all the heavy particles and then allow the good stuff to get into the boiler, and again to give you the right mix, for using for Laurastar. So what happens is the water goes in this boiler, comes up through this cord, and it gets slightly cooled. And then what happens? It gets fed back into the iron. Okay, and this is what it gives you. Okay, you can see it's almost like a jet engine. I'd say it's a very high pressure. But more importantly, is the temperature of this steam is physically the same temperature as your iron at home. So I recommend not to do this with your iron at home. Okay, again, and I'll show in a second, but the reason why I'm doing this is I want you to visually see that why our steam is so different from what you are used to. Okay, and it's very simple. Typical iron you may be used to comes out in the form of large water droplets, which is hot and wet, lots of it. Okay, with the Laurastar, they get ground up and they get pulverized, these large water droplets, and that's what gives you this gas-like state. And as a result, this steam will penetrate and react quite differently than what you're used to with your traditional iron. Okay, and I'm going to show you some specific examples. Okay, also this particular board has a couple of other components that I'll show you as well doing the fabric here. So we all have batting, right? When you take this out of the package, for example, you got the beautiful nice crease that's almost impossible to get out with a traditional iron. Okay, all I'm going to do is just going to hover over this batting, okay, with a 300-degree steam. Okay. okay, it's not only iron, but more importantly, it's dry. And that's the, again, keep that in mind regarding Laurastar, because the Laurastar steam will go into a piece of fabric and immediately dissipate or disappear. Whereas the normal iron, lots of hot moisture will go in and stay into the fabric, okay? In this particular case, I've got about 15 squares of cotton, okay? So in other words, I'm simulating a very thick piece of fabric, okay? With this particular unit, it also has a fan built into it. So when I move this iron, it engages the fan. The fan will do one of two things, either push air up, or I can reverse it, it'll pull air down through the board. And I'll give you examples of both and why both are so important and are so advantageous to use. So my first version is, right now I've got the fan pulling down through the table. So I'm going to go through these 15 layers of steam, of cotton with this steam, okay? And by the way, if you're left-handed or right-handed, there's two buttons, okay? And this is applicable to every one of our irons that we have. So I did the one side. I did the second side. So again, that pulled right through those 15 pieces of cotton and through the table. So what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll peel all of them back. And here's the bottom one, okay? Wrinkle-free, but more importantly, it's completely dry. And again, another visual in terms of how important and different that steam penetrates fabric. Now, normally you probably most likely would have to do one at a time, wouldn't you? Okay? Because of that fan down, now we say by using Laurastar, you're going to cut your ironing time at least in half. There's several other examples as well, but first and foremost, I wanted to show you this. Okay? So anytime you have a heavy fabric, whether it's something like this, a quilt, blue jeans, etc., you want to use that fan down. Now, also keep in mind, you know, the typical iron is almost impossible to get the infamous crease in a quilt that may have been folded up in a drawer for any length of time. With Laurastar, again, you put that quilt down here, okay, put the fan down, and that steam goes right through the quilt. So that crease comes out very, very easily. Again, quite different than what you're used to. Okay?
So, Mike, are you
Yes.
saying that you have the fan on the ironing board on and it's pulling the steam and the air down through the fabric underneath the board? Is that what you're describing?
Yes, that's correct. So that's correct. So when you move the iron, okay, when you move the iron, it engages the fan. It tells the fan to do something either up or down. What you don't have an option of the fan not doing something, okay? So, but after I show you the fan up and down as far as its use, you're going to like it and get hooked with it. So yes, so in that particular scenario, they go right through the fabric, right through the table.
That's awesome.
Okay, so let's flip it around, okay? And I happen to have a piece of silk here, okay? So by the way, on this iron, there's a button right here. There's a picture of a fan. I just simply press it. Now, I don't know if you can see it from there, but the fan, the board is now popping up a little bit, the board cover, okay? So now, the important thing here is, so if you can see the breeze right here, can you see it from there, Denise? The breeze in here?
Yes,
okay.
I can,
so anyways, see that. Yeah. There's a big breeze right now, as you can visually see. So what's happening now, that fan is reversed, and now it's pushing air up through the board. And what it's doing before we touch this fabric, it's physically cooling the fabric. We call it cold ironing. So what that means is when fabric gets cooled down, okay, it fixes itself back into place or gives you the beautiful end result. Well, you need to loosen the fabric up first, which I'll do in this case. So in the top, I've got that 300-degree steam, right, which you would never throw out with your iron on a piece of silk. There's no way you would do that, okay? So I got the heat on top loosening, cooling on the bottom at the same time fixing it. Here we go. And I'm just going to hover over this piece of silk, okay? Okay. Silk is completely dry, okay? There's no residual, and more importantly is it doesn't re-wrinkle. Okay, again, another visual in terms of why this steam is so different, versus some of the other irons you've used. So, again, the advantage there is when you're doing something a little more sensitive, Okay, you want to have that fan out. So if you decide to purchase one of these, until you get used to it, just keep in general terms. If it's heavy fabric, down. If it's a lighter fabric, up. Okay. Also, this is a simple rectangle, if you will, of cotton. Okay. What I want to do is, if you can see, it's completely straight. Now, many people will tell me when they put together their quilt, the squares aren't quite even when you get done. Okay. But with the Laurastar and the steam, you can manipulate that fabric without hurting it, without stretching it, without doing damage. Okay, again, keep that in mind. So I'm going to take it from a square edge, and I'm simply going to throw the Laurastar steam into this. Okay, you can see, but now it's a little bellowed. Okay, so I'm kind of simulating now what people tell me is how their squares look, or their the quilt looks before, when they get it done. So if it looks like this, I'm going to put this back on the board. Again, throwing out the steam. Okay, just the one time. That edge is now completely straight. Okay, so again, you can do this with Laurastar with ease. No residual, moisture and so forth into the fabric. Okay. Also, I'm going to take the same piece of fabric and I'm just going to fold it over and put a nice crease in it. Okay, and I'm just going once with the steam ahead, and then just once with the heat alone and back. Okay, so if you can see that, it's a very crisp edge. Okay, and again, very dry and very, very crisp. Okay. Also, the Laurastar, again, because it can do this kind of thing. We also, for example, I've got a sport coat that I'll just simply show you in terms of, again, why the steam is so different. This happens to be a wool sport coat, 100% Italian wool sport coat. And I'm throwing the steam right onto this fabric. Okay? It's completely dry and completely ironed. So, in this scenario, we always say you can save money versus going to the dry cleaner. For example, here in North Carolina, it's starting to get hot and humid. If I wore that suit a couple of times, the underarm would be, have body odor. Well, I can press and throw that steam into the underarm, and it's going to remove all the germs that are causing the odors and so forth. You don't need to take it to the dry cleaner in that case. Also, we have hygienic steam, which means the steam comes out of the Laurastar will kill bugs, bud mite, germs, you name it. It will also kill the Corona-19 virus. Okay, well, the only iron in the world that is certified, to be able to do that kind of thing. So, what I'd also like to do, and again, this is called the Smart U. Again, Denise will talk about it after the fact, but there's a couple of things that I want to show you what this iron does as well. After 10 minutes of non-use, this iron and all of our other irons will shut off automatically. But you have the ability to override the auto shut-off in every single one of our irons. So you have the safety of it turning off in 10 minutes, but you don't have the aggravation of every time you go back to the iron, it's off. It's a simple thing. You can just press the on off button, hold it for 10 seconds, and you've overridden it. Secondly, with the Smart U, there's another thing. Okay, we call it the sense of steam. So if you remember a few minutes ago, if I wanted steam, I had to press either one of these two buttons. Okay, with the sense of steam, now when I move the iron forward, okay, it automatically throws out steam. So the ironing board senses the iron moving forward and automatically throws out steam. And by the way, it will only throw steam out moving straight ahead. Reason being, the proper way, the most efficient way to iron is straight ahead. Now, unfortunately, most people don't tend to iron that way. They'll do it all over the place. But what's going to happen is now this iron, okay, is teaching you, the user, how to iron properly. Again, another reason why it's going to cut your ironing time in half. Also, if you've got arthritic elbows or bad knuckles or just get plain tired with ironing all the time, it's a lot easier to do so. Okay, the last option here we call pulp sanding. So if you remember, the steam came out in a continuous flow when I pressed the button. Now when I press this button, okay, you can hear that, but it's pulp sanding. So it's steam, then no steam, steam, no steam. that's advantageous, especially if you're doing something that requires a slow iron kind of thing. If you want to get to a nook and cranny on a quilt or any other kind of piece of fabric, you're able to do so very, very easily. Also, when I move this iron off of the board, the flow of steam will go from intermittent to a constant flow. Automatically. It senses now it's off of a piece of fabric. It wants to go, completely on. It doesn't need the intermittent anymore kind of thing. So it senses the fact that it's leaving and off you go. So again, those are a couple of key components as far as the Smart U is concerned. We have a version a notch below, if you will, and simply everything's the same, but it doesn't have those two options I just showed you. Also, there's also 4 levels of fan speed in this particular unit and the other one. So again, you can adjust that fan speed any way you want. One of the other advantages of the fan down, if you have fabric, for example, that requires the fabric to stay in place, you can afford to have it move around, okay? Put the fan down to keep it right in place. Okay, so in addition, this particular board, you can see from there, but it has an origami board cover. Okay, origami, of course, is the art of folding. So you can actually use these lines as a straight edge. So you don't need a ruler or anything else. It's actually right here. Lastly, it also has Bluetooth technology. Okay, so don't be alarmed as far as if you don't understand Bluetooth. It's very easy. You can tie your cell phone into the iron just by pressing a couple of buttons. And what will happen, a bunch of tutorials will come up and show you how to use it. It'll tell you when to replace the filter, it'll tell you when to replace the board cover, etc. But if you don't want to use it, you don't need to. But if you do decide, it's extremely easy to use. Okay, getting back to the filter, okay, we say approximately 15 hours of use, okay, is the average length of a filter, okay? And what's going to happen here, the filter is a navy blue in color. After 15 hours or so, it'll become completely yellow. Okay, and again, that yellow is the remnants of all the excess minerals that never got into the boiler that would have caused it to malfunction. Our portable unit over here too also has a small little filter in it as well. Okay, so.
Hey, Mike, I have a question.
Of course.
I personally am a quilter and I love to use steam when I iron, but there's some people that have been taught and don't like to use steam when they iron. So can you talk a little bit about the option of not using steam with the irons?
Right. So, so again, with this system, of course, again, when I move the iron, we have no option. The fan's going to do something. Now, if you don't want to use steam, simply don't press either one of these buttons. Okay. So you need to physically press one. Okay.
And the plate is super hot, right? So the plate will get the fabric hot enough to do what it needs to do without using the steam, right?
Correct. Yeah, the face plate of this iron is 475 degrees.
That's
so it's going to be hot enough to do it. Correct. Okay. But please keep in mind, in most instances now where you may be very reluctant to use the steam with your iron because it's so hot and so wet. Okay, that's completely eliminated with the Laurastar, as I said earlier. Okay, that steam is so fine and so dry, it'll penetrate any fabric whatsoever. And now you can use steam and any fabric where a few minutes ago before this presentation, right, you would have been very reluctant to do so with your iron.
And I teach a lot of quilting classes and I advocate the use of steam. So I definitely agree with you. There are definitely people though that don't want to use, and maybe they haven't had the experience that we've had yet. So that could be part of it. So I have a question from one of our viewers. Can iron be used with distilled water to extend the life of the filter?
No. And the reason being is the definition of distilled water is no minerals. Okay. With Laurastar, there's a sensor in these boilers. Essentially, when the water gets filled up to 100%, it's got to stop so it doesn't overflow. Okay, that's why Laurastar will only go that far. You'll never see it overflow because when it gets full, a message it reads a message to the body of water in the boiler, and simply the minerals is simply the carrier of the message to say stop, no more water. Now, If there's too many minerals, there's a good chance it's going to malfunction. Well, we don't have to worry about that, do we? We've got the filter. If there's no minerals in the water, there's nothing to read that message, which means it's going to malfunction, which is one of the reasons why your iron will, in fact, malfunction, spit, hot, etc. Okay? Remember, your iron, you pour water in the iron, it comes in right straight out. There's no buffer in between. Okay? In our case, the filter does all the work. So for the best, most effective is use water with minerals. Okay? For example, I'll talk about this in a second. I've got one of the competitive irons. It'll say use tap water, but if there's too many minerals, dilute it with water with no minerals. Well, how do you do that? Okay, how do you know it doesn't have a lot of minerals? I said, how much more of the distilled water do you mix it? It's just very confusing. But again, all those concerns are taken away with the Laurastar.
I have another question. Ann Adams is asking, she got the iron, and I'm thinking you mean you got the lift iron that didn't come with the board, and can she get the board like the one you're demonstrating, or does she just need to get the regular Laurastar board without the fan and everything?
Right, good question. So the only time the fan in the board comes with the integrated unit. So you can get it, we've got this and a couple of other versions of this, but this is the only way you can get the board with an iron. You can't order it a la carte, if you will. So having said that, we've got a couple of very, very good ironing boards that we sell. And also keep in mind, these iron boards are much sturdier and will last a lot longer than your typical ironing board you may have used or purchased in the past.
It's not only sturdier, in my opinion, it's also a little bit deeper, give you a little more work surface, and I love the shelf on
Right.
just the regular iron. Next question, what about soft water? Can you talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, so yes, you can use soft water. Again, there's a lot of different filtration systems in one's home, right? But it all starts with tap water. Now you could have a lot of things cleaning your water before it comes out of your tap. So it's very simple. We see in different parts of the United States, for example, the state of Florida tends to have a lot of minerals in the water. Up in the Pacific Northwest, we tend to see the water much more clear, a lot less minerals. So the way it works is, if you get the Laurastar, put the filter in. Okay, when you use it, if it starts to immediately spit, okay, it doesn't spit, but if it does that, okay, most likely the water coming out of your tap is pretty clean already, based on your system that you have at your home. We'll take that concept, run it through our filter. Now we're cleaning it even more, aren't we? So now we're moving toward that distilled water scenario. In that case, you simply remove the filter and off you go. That's it. It's that simple. Okay.
Awesome. So if somebody's water is already really well filtered, take the filter out and go about your business.
Right. And if someone wants to buy bottled water for this, just make sure it has 2 words on the front, with minerals. Okay.
Awesome. So are you going to show us the lift?
Yeah, I'll show. Let me show you one more.
Yeah.
Sample there. Yep. It also comes with a Soleplate, okay, which is right here. Okay, this Soleplate is Teflon. Okay, so I'm gonna this particular shirt I'm using, if you can see it. Okay, we've got some plastic red beads protruding out. We've also got a couple of logos that have been baked in. So if I happen to put a 475-degree iron face on this, or the iron you have at home, which is approximately the same face temperature, okay, disaster will occur, correct? It'll burn, it'll transfer. So what people tell me, what they typically do is they'll find perhaps something to cover this with, whether it's a towel, whether it's a 1/4-inch piece of fabric, whether they fold it in half, okay? Whether they use the temperature setting up or down, okay? The things that you're forced to do, none of those will take place with Laurastar. You simply go from, again, the 475-degree face, and this literally clicks on like this. Okay? I'm going to press one of the 2 steam buttons. All I've done just now was I took the room temperature of this, it was on my board a second ago, it was room temperature. When I threw that steam into it, I've now elevated the face of this iron to 180 degrees. And that's the perfect amount of heat to go into a piece of fabric, but not hurt it, not melt it, not burn it, not shrink it, not expand it. All the things that you guys are used to. And again, I didn't reach for anything, any extra cloths or anything else. Keep in mind, I've also got this 300 degree steam that you would never use on this with your iron. So here we go. Well, okay, it's completely dry. Okay, there's no bleeding of the logos there. There's no melting of the plastic. So the key thing to remember in this particular case is you can easily transition from one fabric to the other simply by putting the Soleplate on. For example, some people, when they apply applique, it gets kind of sticky sometimes, or anything else that may stick to the face of the iron. The Soleplate eliminates it, or prevents it, excuse me, from getting to the face of the iron. And it's that simple to go from one fabric to a sensitive fabric, okay? And then when you're done, by the way, we recommend that you take it off. Okay? In this particular case, we have a little hook for it here. And the reason why I'm mentioning that to you is, in some cases, you need that 475 degree face temperature, again, for a quilt or a blue jean. So if you want to maximize the way these things work, you want to remove that kind of thing. Okay? So
You can mute me.
I'm going to show, again, our portable.
Hey, Mike, before you move on, I'm sorry to interrupt. We have another question.
Of course.
Would the Laurastar eliminate the need for a tailor's clapper?
For what? I didn't hear the last part.
A tailor's clapper. Like where they kind of clap the fabric together to cool it, to crease it and cool it after ironing it.
Right. All of those things are now eliminated. Okay. The reason why you have to do that is because there's moisture into that fabric, right? There's a reason why you're forced to do something like that. And again, the biggest key takeaway is the steam. Remember, the steam is dry and it dissipates. It doesn't stay in the fabric, which will cause you to do things like you had just mentioned. So you no longer have to do that because that steam is, as a gaslight, very fine and very dry.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. As I mentioned earlier, this is our portable version. Okay. Everything works the same. The iron, the cord. In this case, here's the boiler. Down below, boiler, cord, and iron. So again, and we have 3 versions of this one, Denise. Some have a couple of goodies, if you will, that the other ones don't. But again, keep in mind, in this case, all 3 work the same, and there's different price points based upon what you may or may not want, kind of thing. Okay. In this particular case, as I mentioned, there's a filter that clicks in right in here. It's a black filter. It's self-contained. Okay. You click this in here, filled up with tap water. Okay, put it back on, turn it on, and you're ready to go. So now it performs the same as this, but again, you don't have the board. Also keep in mind, remember I told you about after 15 hours of use, the filter down here, you can visually see it go from a navy blue to a completely yellow or brown. With Laurastar, approximately 15 hours of use, what you'll see is a couple of sensors here will start to beep. That tells you it's time to replace the filter. Okay, it automatically does that for you. Also, while you're ironing, if the water level gets a little bit low, again, it'll chirp and it'll beep. So it's a visual thing and a hearing thing for the user that tells you to, hey, go fill it up before we run out of water. And when you remove this, you can come back 15 minutes later, okay? Even though I've removed the water container here, there's still steam ready to come out in the boiler. So when you remove this and put it back on, you've got the steam right away, so you don't lose any continuity or time, okay? Where a typical iron, when it shuts off, it's off. You have to put the water back in, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so again, the portability, one of the advantages, it's portable. Okay, we can put this on the ground. The cord is 7 feet long, like this. You want to vertically steam something. A lot of people will bring these to, if they've got a weekend quilting event, they'll put this right in their car, or their trunk kind of thing. So it's very, very portable. and it takes about 1,700 watts of electricity. So it's the same. The example there, of course, is the same amount of electricity as a hair dryer. Okay, in both cases, by the way. Okay?
I have another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Does the auto shutoff work the same on the lift as it does on the Smart Iron? So if you set it, you said 10 seconds, you can have it not auto shut off. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. On every single one of our irons, that takes place.
Okay.
Good, very good question. And again, if you can visually see here, right here is the on-off button. I'm just going to press that for 10 seconds. And what you'll see in 10 seconds, in this case, a couple lights will blink. It's just a visual thing. When you see that, remove your finger, and now this iron will not shut off until you either hit the on-off button again or unplug it. By the way, the same exact scenario is on the system. The on-off button down below, press it for 10 seconds. Again, you'll see some lights blink, remove your finger, and now you know it's overridden. Okay?
And do you recommend that we unplug the iron when we're not using it?
No, absolutely not. Leave it plugged in.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to give you the real scenarios for whatever reasons. I don't know, you know.
You're making this really, really easy for us. This is great.
Yeah, just hit the on-off button. And by the way, when you turn it off, you leave for the day, for example, come back the next morning. When you turn it back on, it automatically, in both cases, defers to in 10 minutes, I'm going to shut off. Okay? So when you press it on again, unless you press and hold it for 10 seconds, you'll override it. Okay, so just so you know, it automatically defers back to in 10 seconds.
Auto shut off. Okay, I've got another viewer question. You're talking about the filter lasting approximately 15 hours. Is that working hours, or is it on hours, or is it just an approximation based off of when the filter fills? It usually takes about 15 hours of ironing.
Oh, good question, by the way. So the reason why we say around 15 hours, not being vague, but it all depends on how many minerals coming out of your sink, right? If you've got a lot of minerals, it'll last around 15 hours. If you've got a few minerals but still need the filter, it's going to last longer than. So that's just so you all understand.
It's the general.
Yeah, that's why it's kind of a guesstimate, right? So, yeah. So, what was the question again? I'm sorry, I lost my plane.
No, you did good. So 15 hours is an approximation.
Yeah,
based off of how long the filter will last.
Right. And by the way, the replacement filters, okay, one filter comes with the lift units and one filter comes with the integrated units. You can buy them separately, and there's 3 filters in a box. Okay, that's how, when you buy those from Nettles, that's how you would receive them, in a little cardboard black box kind of thing. Also, this is the kind of package that you receive, but in this particular scenario, this is an ironing board cover that we sell as well, that Nettles sells. Okay, so again, very easy.
You can.
Yep.
I have the filters here in boxes, the 2 different styles of filters here. So that's what they look like in the packaging. Yep,
exactly. And in each scenario, there's 3 filters of the lifts and then 3 filters of the integrated systems. Okay, that's how you purchase them from Nettles. Okay. So, and let me just briefly spend a couple of minutes on from a competitive standpoint. So again, in general terms, this is a Rowenta iron. Okay, and I want to point out some of the differences of this versus Laurastar. Hopefully, I've effectively shown you, because of that steam is such a game changer. It changes the whole way you're going to iron, you're going to quilt, you're going to do all sorts of things. Okay, for example, if you look at the face of our iron versus the typical iron, in this case, you've got holes, steam holes from top to bottom. Okay, in the case of Laurastar, the top half has steam, the lower half does not. It's solid metal, isn't it? Which is heat. So when we go across a piece of fabric, the steam loosens the fabric up. Right behind it, simultaneously, the heat fixes it and gives you the beautiful end result. That's why it's one and done. Remember, moving straight ahead and straight back. Whereas the traditional iron will throw all this wet moisture into the fabric, and it stays in the fabric, right? And that's what causes it's a lot longer to iron, et cetera, and in many cases, you have to allow the fabric, in this case, to dry out, right? And again, there's so much moisture coming out. Now, for example, if it falls to the side or whatever, after 8 minutes, it'll automatically shut off. In this case, you have to turn it back on, wait for it to reboot, and you're ready to go. But in this particular scenario, remember, we have the ability to override it. Okay? So also, the way irons are designed is the iron for Laurastar is completely flat. So when I put this onto a piece of fabric, okay, it'll equally get through all the fabric, the full face of the iron. Okay? Traditional iron are from front to back. They're just slightly elevated back, just slightly. But it requires the user more elbow grease to get into the fabric. Okay, and that's quite important, again, especially if you do a lot of ironing, if you're arthritic, a bad knuckle kind of thing, etc. And our version of elbow grease is right here. Okay, there's nothing to it, again, because that steam will penetrate the fabric without having to give it any physical force kind of thing. Okay, also, on our iron here, we have no temperature setting. If you remember what I mentioned, from 475 to the 180 on that Soleplate, well, the traditional iron, you have to adjust this, don't you? Okay, you better adjust it properly. In many cases, people don't. Okay, but again, you're kind of playing Russian roulette, if you will, with this, because again, you want to make sure that temperature gets to the right temperature. Also, if you remember, our steam comes out continuous flow. Okay. This particular iron, when you press the button, it throws up steam and then stops. Do it again, throws up steam and stops. Okay, so the reason why it doesn't come out constantly, because again, that water is so wet and so hot. Where ours, you can do it continuously with no issues whatsoever. Okay, from a lifespan standpoint, any one of our irons are 10 plus years. So first of all, it eliminates any obsolescence. Okay. Also, in most cases, these irons tend to, a year or two perhaps in time to get a new one. So, what you're not getting with, with this versus the Laurastar, you're getting a professional use, because the technology, the steam that I'm showing everyone here, is the same technology as a professional system. So, you're getting a professional result, right? And you're getting longevity. You're getting 10 plus years of use. Okay. Now we guarantee parts for these things for 10 years plus. Okay. That's why we're so confident that it's going to last, and typically they'll last that particular time frame in that some. Okay. Also, I want to address warranty. Okay. The normal warranty on all of our products is 12 months. Denise is going to be offering a special on the warranty, which I'll allow her to explain. But the warranty works very simply. If you get the Laurastar and for whatever reasons you think something is wrong with it or incorrect, there's a toll-free number you can call. Our office is located in the state of Washington. Okay, you'll speak to a gentleman and he'll tell you. In many cases, you can actually, for example, the biggest thing that people tend to do, they forget how to turn the on-off override on or off. So they call and say, "Hey, it doesn't work." And then they'll remind them. I mean, usually they're simple fixes. For whatever reasons, if it does have to come back to us in the first 12 months, okay, in the case of the lifts, you remove that water tank, and that just comes back to us. We repair it and get it back to you. In the case of the systems, this boiler down below here, the big plastic boiler, that simply comes off of the cross legs. So it's the cross legs, the boiler, and the iron come back to us. So we don't have to worry about sending the whole thing back to us. Okay, so again, they're just made to last an awful long time, etc. So, so that kind of concludes. Hopefully, I've conveyed to you a little much better feel for an understanding of Laurastar, and again, why we're so different, etc., etc. So, Denise, if you've got any other questions, feel free to ask. Or Denise,
yep, so somebody at home is asking, and I want to answer this one on my own way. She said if she's understanding correctly, the water reservoir can be filled without having to cool the iron first and let the iron heat up again. And I will say that's correct. You don't have to wait. So if you're in the middle of pressing and your iron alerts you that the water is running low, you can stop where you are, take the whole canister, the water tank to the sink, refill it with your water, and set it right back onto the base and get right back on track. There's water that's in the boiler already that is already heated up and ready to go. So you really there's no interruption except for having to go and get the water and bring it back. There's really no interruption in the ironing process. So I love that because I'm ready to go. If I want to iron, I'm ready to iron at that moment in time. So yeah, that's a great feature for me.
Yep. So there it is. We just removed it from the boiler. Okay, let's say you get a phone call, you come back 15 minutes later, okay? And by the way, if you can hear there's a sensor beeping right now, that's telling the customer, hey, don't forget to put this back on the boiler. So it lets you know not to forget, okay? So I just removed it, okay? I lost no continuity in steam. Again, as I mentioned about with the lift, the portable version, that steam is in that boiler ready to come out. Okay. Also, what I'd like to share with everybody, now this cord is 7 feet long. Okay. So if you're using the Laurastar, you're throwing out steam. Okay. Now, when you throw out steam, of course, that cord gets warmed up a little bit. Now, if you don't use it or settle it for 15 minutes to a half an hour or even longer, right? And especially if there's humidity in the air, what may occur is condensation may accumulate in the 7-foot cord. Now, again, we say we don't spit, we don't do all the things that you are used to. So what I recommend you do, which I do every time, is when you pick up the iron, to simply do this. Press one of the 2 steam buttons for about 5 seconds. All I simply have done is, if there is a drop or two, I'm guaranteeing it going out of the iron before it goes onto a piece of fabric. Okay? So it's a small little note, but it can make a big difference, especially if you're ironing and something does come out of this thing and say, geez, I thought you said it doesn't spit, kind of thing. So
that's an awesome. I'm glad you just talked about that, because as you were talking, somebody asked the question, what happens if the iron spits? And yeah, I've had that experience where right when you get it warmed up, a little bit of water just comes out because it's been stored in that hose. So yeah, that's a pretty great idea.
Right. And when you completely turn these units off, when they're completely off, it takes approximately 4 to 5 minutes when you turn it, when it's, stone cold, if you will. It'll take about 4 or 5 minutes for it to start up, okay? And how do you know that? In the case of the systems, on the boiler, there's a green light that will blink, okay? When it becomes solid, you're ready to go, okay? With the portable units, it's the same thing, okay? On the on-off button, just the on-off button will blink. When it becomes solid, it's ready to go. Also, on the portable unit, if you can see here, okay, there's a little drain, okay? Just take a quarter or a screwdriver when the system is off all night. We recommend, Denise, to you and your customers, once a month, drain that water out of the portable, okay? And that's the same scenario as a 5,000-mile oil change in a high-end automobile, okay? In the case of the integrated systems, it comes with a plastic tray that you simply put underneath in the bottom of the boiler. And there's 2 screw caps, one on the top and one on the bottom. Unscrew both, let that water just visually or physically drain into the plastic tray. Screw them back on, put your water tank back on, and you're ready to go. Okay? So again, from a maintenance standpoint, if you'll do that, you'll maximize the life and the effort of these things and allow them to work, along, of course, with changing in the filters. Okay. So, are there any other questions?
We have a limited edition anniversary special model that you're introducing to us.
Yep. So we're now offering, as we speak, and Denise will share that with you. She's taking pre-orders right now. So what we've done is Laurastar is 40 years old this year. And the way we're commensurating that is a couple of things. Again, it's the exact same unit here, except the iron itself is gold. Okay, the boiler down below, which is now black, is also completely gold. Also, on the board cover itself, it'll have a nice logo of the 40th anniversary, nicely done. Okay, in addition to that, again, Denise, you can talk about, but there's some free goodies that we'll be offering, or Nutter will be offering you as a consumer only with this particular unit, which you'll share with you in a second. Okay, so again, it's the same system, but again, it's something quite exciting because again, we're 4 years old and we're very proud of the fact, and that's why we're giving you the customer an additional reason and/or to buy these things. It's a great promotion. So when we talk about 40th anniversary, which Denise will mention in a second, that's what she's referring to. Okay. In addition to that, I know she'll be talking about it as well. She's got some additional promotions going on with some of our lifts and also the second version of this, and she'll share that with you and give you the details. Okay. So again, it's a big deal, the 40th anniversary. Okay. Also, what comes with that 40th anniversary is two things. One filter comes with this, so we're giving, or we're going to give away free of charge another box of filters. There's 3 filters in a box. And by the way, this iron will fold up on 2 wheels. Okay. We also have a protective cover you can slip right over this thing. Okay, so that's the gist of the promotion, but again, Denise will give you more details.
So what's the MSRP of the anniversary, the 40th anniversary model, Mike?
So it's $2,500. Excuse me.
So we're going to do a pre-order price for the anniversary model of $2,250, and all of the goodies that Mike has talked about will be free with the purchase for the pre-order. Can we do that? Is that okay if we do that, Mike?
Mm-hmm.
And then the Smart Eye, can you give them just a few differences? The iron operates the same, the steam operates the same, but there's a few things that aren't with that one that kind of saves a little bit of money and just has a lower price point. We're going to have that one. It's not a pre-order. This is a current model that we have in stock. The Smart Eye would be $1,849 is the sale price. But can you just give them a few differences between the anniversary model and the Smart Eye?
Right. Good question. So there's only a couple of things. So if you remember when I showed you the auto steam and the ability to pulsate, remember with those 2 buttons down below? So this is a Smart U, okay, anniversary. The notch below we call a Smart Eye. Simply, the Smart Eye does not have either one of those functions. Okay?
Quite a bit of savings.
So, no pulsating, no ability to throw out steam automatically. Of course, in the case of the Smart Eye, the board cover is white and the boiler is white. Again, just to differentiate between the two. Okay? With the U, okay, if you see that V, okay, that V on this particular iron is physically part of the face itself, and when you put that onto a piece of fabric, what it does, it allows the fabric to open up quicker, okay, to allow the heat and the steam to do its job and dissipate. What it won't do is cause any damage to the quilting, clothing, fabric whatsoever. Okay, on the Smart U, excuse me, on the Smart Eye, you have this face. Okay, a little bit different. Okay, so this doesn't have that ability to, again, do what that V does. And what the advantage, of course, here, of course, is it gets the job done a little bit quicker. It's not a substantial difference. I'm not going to deceive you, but there is a slight difference in time. Okay, so the face of the iron, the ability to not be able to auto steam, the ability not to be able to pulsate, those 3 things are the I, and those three things included is the U.
And those both come included with the board, obviously, right?
Yeah, they're exactly it. It all comes self-contained unit.
Awesome.
The board, I just want here again, it all comes in a nice portable cardboard box for you.
And to take pre-order on the anniversary model, we can take that through the rest of June, which is about 2 more weeks. And then we should see product mid-July. Is that correct?
Yes, we'll be able to, our warehouse, as you know, is in Chicago, Illinois. We'll have the ability to ship it out to you and or your customers the first worst case scenario, mid-July. Now, the end of this week, we're going to be almost at the end of June, so it's not that far off.
Yep, we're close. Okay. Lastly, for me at least, I do want to talk a little bit about the pricing for just the lift. We have the red lift here. I think we have a few other colors, and we can certainly order it in other colors for people that want to. The regular price on that, I want to say, is $800. Is that right?
Right.
And so our special price for you guys watching the event is $549. And we're also, I decided, I hope Mike's okay with this, but I decided that we're going to throw in an extra box of filters for anybody that purchases from watching the video. I hope that's all right with you, Mike.
And that's an $80 value, by the way, the filters.
Oh, yeah. One other benefit that we are able to provide you guys, I don't know if you can see this or not, but there is a 1-year warranty on the Laurastar irons, but we are able to extend that warranty to 2 years, which is pretty great. I haven't had an issue with mine. I've had mine for, I think, 5 years. I would have replaced my iron 5 times by now, but with the Laurastar, I've had the same iron for 5 years and I've really loved it. So this is going to be an unlimited, or excuse me, a limited warranty, but for 2 years instead of the one that you would not be able to get from Nuttall. So that's pretty great.
Right.
Are there any other? Oh, there's another question, except I can't read it. We also have the regular ironing boards that don't have the fan that you use with the lift irons. So yeah, I think we're good. And I don't know if you have anything else to add, Mike.
Yeah, I just want to add one last thing. So if you look at the price points of Laurastar versus what you're used to purchasing, okay, there is a difference, obviously, okay, but hopefully I've been able to give you a much better understanding why there's such a difference, because again, the ability for this thing to treat fabric differently, to give you that beautiful end result quickly. Equally as important, if you can go back how much money you may have spent on an iron or irons the last 10, 12, 15 years, right, versus what you'd be paying for a Laurastar. Okay?
Oh, I've easily, like I said, in the past, I easily replace my iron every year for a $150 iron every year. So I've already saved money for sure.
And also keep in mind what you're not getting with a traditional iron, you're not getting the professional results. So again, always keep that in mind.
One more question. Can the lift be used with a portable iron? The lift is the portable iron.
Correct.
So I'm not sure, and what that is.
I think I may know what they're asking. So this lift can be used on any ironing board you have. So if you've got an ironing board at home, you can use this on your ironing board at home, okay? But the reason why we hopefully at least take a look through Nuttall's to look at our, our ironing boards. Our ironing boards are built to last and they're very strong, okay? This weighs about 30 to 35 pounds when it's full of water. Okay, you put this on a typical ironing board, good luck trying to keep it steady. Okay, so again, Denise can go through those specific details with you, but our boards are made to last a long time. Okay, they also have different levels of height, 6 different levels of height. They also both fold up. Okay, so again, keep in mind, even from a board standpoint, we just make them a lot better to last a lot longer.
I really appreciate all the information that you've provided to us, Mike, and I really appreciate everybody watching. If you have further questions for us, you can reach out. I think Chad put his phone number in the comments, but you can reach us here in Murray or at any one of our locations if you have more questions, or if you'd like to get on that pre-order list for the 40th anniversary Laurastar Iron, or any one of the other products that we talked about. So again, thank you so much for watching. Mike, thank you so much for your awesome knowledge and experience on this product. And I hope you guys have a great day.
Thank you.